I'd like to welcome my first guest on the show, Attorney Jay McMahon, who is a candidate for Attorney General, which will be, he's actually running as a Republican against Dan Shores. They will go up against each other, and one of them will come out strong and vow for the seat that Maura Healey now holds, and hopefully we can get a good election where the best person wins and serves the Commonwealth accordingly. Jay McMahon, thank you for attending.
Chris, it's good to be here this afternoon or this evening, and hello everyone in Greater New Bedford. Love to be here.
Jay, give us a little background on yourself, your law practice, and what made you want to run for this position?
Okay, well, I've been a lawyer for 30 years. My practice has always been in either the Wareham or the Buzzards Bay area. I live in Buzzards Bay. And since 1993, I've been at the same location at 25 Main Street in Buzzards Bay. I have a general practice of law. That means I have taken on just about every kind of case you can think of. Just about every kind except for maybe a patent. I don't think I've ever done a patent. But other than that, I've been in every court of the Commonwealth. I've been in the United States Court of Appeals in Boston, been in the Federal District Court. I've been in the Supreme Judicial Court of Massachusetts, the Appeals Court for the Commonwealth, the Superior Court, in a whole bunch of counties, almost every district court in Massachusetts. There may be a few that I haven't been in. The probate court. I have taken on all kinds of cases. I've also been before federal agencies, state agencies, and municipal agencies. So I've got a pretty well-rounded grasp on Massachusetts jurisprudence.
Now, you've been a resident of Massachusetts, right? Most of your
Yeah,
life?
all my life I've been a resident of Massachusetts. A couple of times I've had extended stays out of the state, but my residence has always been in Massachusetts.
Nice. Jay, the first question of the night I'm going to ask of you is, you're running for this position of Attorney General. In your opinion, sir, what are the duties of the Attorney General of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts?
Well, it's interesting. The Attorney General's office is like a huge law firm. They got over 260 lawyers. They've got 5 divisions. They've got over 300 employees. And they have an investigative force of around 300 state troopers. So it's a huge operation. And they've got, like I said, they've got 5 major divisions, and they're involved in the Attorney General position itself is the top elected law enforcement officer in the Commonwealth. And what the Attorney General does is set policy for law enforcement. And it's over a whole bunch of areas. But for instance, in criminal, the Attorney General can preempt any criminal investigation, take it over. They can do whatever they want with that. They can either enhance the investigation, move across counties, go statewide. The Attorney General can also, they can decide not to take a case and leave it up to a district attorney if the district attorney wants to take it or not. They have concurrent jurisdiction with the district attorney in any case. So in other words, they can preempt if they want to. Most of the time they don't.
I understand the term preempt. Maybe you can let the viewers that might not understand it know what you're saying.
Basically, it means if the district attorney has a case, or even local police have a particular case they're working on, the Attorney General can decide that they're going to take that case over because it either serves some interest of the Commonwealth, or actually they don't need a reason. But that's what some of the reasons are for them to do it. They take over a case. If there's a case.
Generally to set precedent, excuse me for the interruption.
Yep,
correct?
to set precedent, and also if it's multi-venue. In other words, there's something going on in Plymouth County, Worcester County, and Bristol County, and say drug trafficking or something like that. they take over the whole operation. And they can take it over from start to finish. They can come in the middle of a case. They could make a determination that they want to null pros a case. Now, practically speaking, they would make a phone call to the local DA and say, there's a reason why we want this case to go away. We want you to null pros it. Now, it could be for a number of reasons. It could be that they've got they turned a defendant into an informant,
Yes.
and they want to do away with the prosecution. So there's a number of reasons why they can do it, and they do that. That's part of the AG's function, to function in that capacity. They also have a lot of other cases. They investigate civil rights violations, consumer affairs, on all kinds of issues, consumer affairs, environmental matters. They could also represent and be an enforcement to other state agencies. So it's a huge law firm, and they can pick and choose or decide to be exclusive in the prosecution of any kind of case.
In law enforcement firm.
Well, it's supposed to be, but we know in some cases, and especially in this particular AG, she loves to go into federal court and sue the Trump administration.
That actually leads me to my next question. A follow-up to the first, which is what in your opinion are not the duties of the Attorney General that our current Attorney General, Maura Healey, is performing?
Well, first of all, the Attorney General is not to make law. They're to enforce law. And you asked me earlier what was one of the reasons that propelled me to run for Attorney General. In July of 2016, Maura Healey issued her enforcement order. It was called the Copycat Assault Weapon Enforcement Order. Basically, the way she went about it, it was like issuing an edict or a fiat by a despot, someone who just issued it on her signature. Now, this is an enforcement order that she issued that no state representative voted on it, no state senator voted on it, the governor never knew it was coming, and she issued it. And by issuing it, she upset and overturned 18 years of gun policy in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And she did it on her signature. Now, many of us are saying it's unconstitutional. I have a personal conviction that it violates the Second Amendment to the United States Constitution. She lists a whole bunch of rifles and handguns on that order. And she said that
The rifles and the handguns that are on that order were the ones that were included in the original, the original legislation.
Mhm.
What she did is that she turned around and said the copies and duplicates of, which is not the case, and it's not the wording of the law. She basically amended the wording of the law.
That's exactly what she did. And by doing that, and by to me, that was infringing. And, think about it. The reason she said she was doing that is because she wanted to keep guns off the street. She wants to keep guns off the street. So by doing that, she's banning guns from lawful gun owners, from people who have licenses to carry in Massachusetts. And she did it 1 week before she was going to go down to the Democratic National Convention in Cleveland to endorse Hillary Clinton. Now, basically, she doesn't fool any of us, certainly not the gun owners. She doesn't fool us. What she did was she did that so that she could go and endorse Hillary Clinton, and she could say, Hillary, we know you're going to be president, and you're going to need a United States Attorney General. You're going to need a gun grabber just like you. So she brought her order, and she says, here's my credentials right here. I'm a gun grabber just like you. When you're looking for an Attorney General, I'm your man.
So basically, is what you're saying is that she politicized. That decision was just a political motive.
It was for political expediency. It's not the first time she's done that. Now, she did that one against our Second Amendment rights, and she didn't care. In fact, people brought it out to her. There were rallies for 3 weekends in a row in Boston Common against that enforcement order. She didn't back down. She dug her heels in. Now, that's not the first time that she's done something against, or for political expediency against our rights. In fact, even though we have a clear right, Second Amendment right, that says the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, she didn't care about infringing on that. Now, that brings me to the next point. In January of this year, President Trump, one of his first acts of office was to issue a temporary ban in 6 Middle East countries, a temporary travel ban, until they can institute extreme vetting. Now, a lot of people don't know what extreme vetting is. I'll give you an example of extreme vetting. Apply for a license to carry firearms in Massachusetts. That is extreme vetting. You got to answer a lot of personal questions about yourself. You got to talk about whether you have any kind of a criminal record or if you have a history of mental illness. That all comes out, and that goes into the decision whether you're going to get a license to carry in Massachusetts or not. Now, putting aside whether some of those questions interfere with your Second Amendment right, she actually went and sued Trump to enjoin him. Enjoin means to stop his temporary travel ban. She said, and get this, she said that Trump's travel ban is religious in nature because those 6 nations that the ban affects were Muslim majority nations. So she said that they affect the First Amendment right. So you got to ask yourself, the First Amendment right of who? The First Amendment is for Americans. The First Amendment is a constitutional right for United States citizens. These people are foreign nationals, and she says they have a right to be here in the United States. Now, you don't have to be a lawyer to know that's not true. They don't have a right to, no foreign national has a right to be in the United States. That's why we have a visa process. But she said that Trump is violating their civil rights. So she goes to the United States District Court in Boston, in Massachusetts, and tries to enjoin Trump and opposes his temporary travel ban. Now, you got to ask yourself, who's she representing? She's representing those foreign nationals? Is she representing people from 6 Middle Eastern states and not the United States citizens? Certainly not the citizens of Massachusetts. But take her priorities and her premise in this case and take it to its logical conclusion. She would have people come into this country, people that we know are containing, well, the refugees we know from the Obama administration, from the intelligence, from the Obama administration, that elements of ISIS and Al-Qaeda are infiltrating those refugees from those countries and want to come into this country, not necessarily to do us harm, but certainly to kill us. They want to kill us. And so Trump took this action. Now, Maura Healey wanted to interfere with that action. Basically, she's saying they have a right to be here in the United States. That's wrong. However, she did this for political expediency, not because she's concerned about public safety for Massachusetts citizens, because if she was, she would not want elements of ISIS and Al-Qaeda coming in here. Nope, she did it for political expediency because she hates the Trump administration. And I'm telling you, she has proven herself to care less about our civil rights. She will do what she wants to do, whatever her lunacy, left-wing thinking wants her to do. She will try to take the Commonwealth there, and she doesn't care about our rights.
Basically, you're saying that she just politicizes her office. Something
Absolutely, she does.
Absolutely. Now, we have to really concentrate on the Commonwealth. This show, I've brought upon some many different topics that really affect the greater New Bedford area.
Right.
All the way from stuff we discussed on the pre-interview, drugs, domestic violence, human trafficking, all stuff that is dealt with as Attorney General.
Right.
The DEA has established a heroin task force in New Bedford.
Yes, they have.
There's, I believe, 6 cities in the country that were chosen for this program, and New Bedford was one of them.
Well, because
It's not a good thing. It's not a good exclusive club.
It's not a good club to be in, but it's a good thing for New Bedford to have had that distinction, only because
Now we're
the
getting extra help.
the problem is being addressed.
Yes, sir. As I asked your opponent, your first opponent, which will be Dan, I'm going to ask you the same question. What's your comprehensive plan to help New Bedford in this area, this region, which includes Fall River, Wareham, which is the gateway to the Cape, and New Bedford, to fight this opioid epidemic?
This opiate crisis. Of course, you know, it's a crisis when it happens to your neighbor. It's a catastrophe when it happens to you and your family. There's not a family in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that has not been affected by the opiate crisis. My own family, me personally, I lost my oldest son to opiates. So I've got a personal part in this thing, but.
Sorry for your loss.
Well, he was a war hero, and I'll tell you how it started with him, and I'll put it in the 10-second segment. He was in part of Iraqi freedom. He was in one of the troops, beginning troops, to enter Baghdad, and they wound up doing something. They were under enemy fire, but he didn't get hit by enemy fire. He had to lift something and move something, and he ruined his back. He wanted to make the Army a career, and but when he went to re-up, they told him that because of his condition, he was unfit for duty. So they discharged him to the VA. And Chris, the VA said, yeah, we can treat that, and they put him on OxyContin. And after several years, they realized that they were making opiate addicts out of tens of thousands of veterans. So what they wound up doing was they tried to dial it back. In other words, they give you a 20-day supply for 30 days, thinking they were going to wean these guys off. No, it didn't work. All of them made up the difference on the black market. And that's why we've got veterans now who are dying of fentanyl and heroin, because they're no longer getting any opiates from the VA. So it's a serious problem, and you're asking how does it going to affect this community? This community.
What could you do as Attorney General to help it?
Oh, there are tons of things that can be done. First of all, since Maura Healey's been connected with the AG's office, the death by opiates in Massachusetts have quadrupled. So something that we're doing at the state level is terribly wrong. When it comes to opiates, you gotta do a three-prong approach. You've got to do effective rehabilitation. Right now, we don't have that. The programs that people either get sentenced to or that people wind up being assigned to are not effective. In fact, they're about 99% failure rate. I'll tell you how I found this out. While I've been on the campaign trail, early on, I've been meeting with parenting support groups. And I happened to meet one down on the Cape, and there was about 50 parent couples. And we were sharing stories about loved ones who were in the opiate trap, just addicted to opiates and can't get out. And so we were talking about rehabilitation. And I asked them, how many have loved ones that have gone through a rehabilitation program, say once? No hands went up. I'm like, oh, I must have asked that wrong. I said, how about gone through twice? No hands went up. And I asked my wife, I said, am I asking this question wrong? She goes, no, keep going. I said, let's try 6 times. How many have done it 6 times? A couple of hands went up. I said, how about 7? A few more. I said, how about 12? Most of the hands went up. I said, how about more than 12? The rest of the hands went up. Wow. Think of it, 12 times through a rehabilitation program. And most of them, when they get through the program, they're on methadone, Suboxone, or Vivitrol. So the point is, it's not working. So someone has to do something about it. Someone has to take point for this. Now, you can take point on it through the AG's office. It's a bully pulpit, and you can use it. But that's not the only thing. Because the AG's office gets a lot of funds, and she's done it against, like, for instance, CVS and Walgreens. She put the soft touch on them through an administrative action. She got $100,000 each from them. That's something that can go into a successful program. Now, there are successful programs out there. There is a successful program right now that's called the Massachusetts Model. It had 250,000 Massachusetts residents have been cured through this problem. Now, when I say cured, I don't talk about swapping out one opiate for another. I'm talking about going through a successful cure, a successful program, and to be cured at the end of the program. But we have to commit to long-term rehabilitation because, well, the brain needs to heal. It's not like alcoholics. People think we could treat it like an alcoholic program, put them through a 90-day program.
Dry 'em out and kick 'em out.
Exactly right. Dry them out, kick them out. It doesn't work. We need to commit to long-term rehabilitation. Now, I've said on the campaign trail, if a number of these people, see, it's like a dripping faucet. If all these people, something happened to them at once, like a hurricane or something that came through, wiped it out, we had all these deaths, we would do something about it.
It kind of has.
Well, it has in the long run, of course it has, but we're not committing to it. Now, the governor says, and I'm taking him at his word, that he's committed to resolving this problem. I talked to a bunch of state legislators, they say they're committed to resolving this problem. But I haven't seen the money come forth, and I haven't seen the program come forth, and that's the problem. So that's only one aspect. We got to dry up the source, and we have to be brutal in prosecution. See, people don't like to hear that. They say, oh, you're talking police brutality. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about prosecution of this. I'm talking about the AG taking the lead and prosecuting these perpetrators of this poison on our loved ones. I'm talking about strong sentencing. Now, Maura Healey came out and said she thinks that the sentencing guidelines are too harsh in Massachusetts. I say they're not harsh enough. I say if this problem is quadrupling, we got to send a strong message. We have to make it in Massachusetts so difficult and dangerous and hazardous for these purveyors of this poison that they're going to do one or two things. They're going to see the errors of their ways and give up their trade, or they're going to move on to another state where the laws are more lenient. That's the second thing. The third thing that I'm concerned with is public safety. I'm concerned about her plan and her desire to see Massachusetts a sanctuary state. Because I'm going to tell you what that means. Now, I know we have a lot of immigrants here in New Bedford. Most of them are law-abiding. Mm-hmm. But Maura Healey says she wants to turn the state into a sanctuary state. That means she wants to stop communicating and cooperating with federal authorities. Now, think of what that says. Right now, we know that 80% of the opiate trade and deaths are from fentanyl and heroin. Fentanyl and heroin you don't get from CVS or Walgreens. It's not sold over the counter, and it's not manufactured in Massachusetts. So where does it come from? Most of it comes from China, and it gets into our country through Mexico. The feds know that. The Border Patrol knows it. Custom knows it. DEA knows it. ICE knows it. Yeah. And the FBI knows it. So what does this say when it comes to enforcement and drying up the source? Maura Healey says she wants to make Massachusetts a sanctuary state. I say we do just the opposite. We enhance our cooperation with federal law enforcement. They are the biggest tools we need because they know how this poison is coming into New England and particularly into Massachusetts. I would not make this a sanctuary state at all. I would do just the opposite. I would work with these people and cooperate with them and dry up the source.
Of course you would, because I mean we just talked about the task force.
That's right.
It's part of the deal.
But I got to tell you something.
You can't just smack one agency and then push aside, shake hands with one agency and push aside another. That's not how it works.
It is not how it works. And I got to tell you something. A couple of months ago, we had a big operation down on the Cape.
Yes.
Okay, DEA came down, and they did it No local officials were there at all. It was all, completely all fed.
I got something else to ask you. We prosecute gangsters back in the day as in terms of two questions actually. The bully pulpit.
Yep.
Quickly, I just want to let people know that what that is exactly. As Attorney General, what is the bully pulpit? I know
Okay.
what it is, but people might not know what that is.
Okay, here's what it is.
Just a quick
The bully pulpit is when a prominent federal or state official has access, he has authority in certain areas, and he expresses his opinion, broadcasting it over all of media sources, and basically pointing out wrongdoing that he may not have authority or complete authority to correct, but he points it out anyway. Corruption is a good example,
Yes.
pointing out corruption. If there's, the Attorney General, for instance, if the Attorney General puts out an opinion about corruption in Washington DC, absolutely sees it, it maybe has very little ties to Massachusetts, but points it out anyway and say, someone in authority that can correct that should be doing that.
Perfect. My next question before we got to kind of move along here. We're taking a little longer than I thought. I asked you yesterday something that's near and dear to me. The last two questions I'm going to ask you about. First is domestic violence.
Yes.
We had a few guests on, friends of mine, that were victims of domestic violence. I want you to touch upon what you would do as Attorney General to help them out. And then secondly, you spoke about protecting the Second Amendment, which,
Right.
as you know, we met previously and talked previously. I own guns and masks, so I obviously stand with the Second Amendment. I need you to touch upon other things that other people in the Commonwealth other citizens' rights that you'd protect besides gun owners, and anything from alternative lifestyling to whatever other stuff there is, like the bakeries that are forced to cook bake cakes for people for LGBTQ communities and the LGBTQ community itself. Are you going to protect the business owners' rights and as well as any form or fashion of any lifestyle? And what would you provide as Attorney General to make sure that everyone in the Commonwealth is protected equally and as passionately as you are with the Second Amendment? So we'll start off first with domestic violence and then follow up with that question.
Well, domestic violence has been with us since the beginning of time, and it's going to be with us long after this generation passes. We need to protect the victims of it clearly. It's got to be a case where we keep people apart and respond when we first hear of the violence occurring. In other words, most of the time, the initial call is a 911 call by the local police department. Local police department comes, investigate. Let's assume in this case it's a boyfriend and girlfriend thing, but it could be any form of domestic partners. It could be any family members, whatever it is. The 911 call comes and the police come, and right now the way it works is they make a determination. Someone has been hurt by another person, there's usually an arrest made. Some police departments have a protocol that if there is a call of domestic violence, someone is coming back to the station in handcuffs. Mm-hmm. So, if you got two people fighting each other, they both are bruised, there is an issue. If they both get arrested, they can both apply for a restraining order, and they can both get a restraining order against each other. What we were talking about yesterday in the pre-interview was about if one of the persons in the home owns guns.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that?
We can do that as well.
Okay. Well,
but
why don't you ask me something?
You've already proven that you're very Second Amendment. What I'd like you to do is also prove that you're also what you could do as an Attorney General to help these victims of domestic violence.
Well,
Ones that are proven to be abused. You're doing now you're getting into the initial police contact of the situation.
Right.
I want to get into more of the prosecution and the protection of victims.
okay. Well, as you know, each district attorney and the Attorney General's office has victim witness people. I'm going to tell you some of the problems that you come into prosecuting these cases. You need the cooperation of the victim. If the victim, and we're going to talk in a minute on a case, we're going to assume a case where the victim is going to cooperate and go on. A lot of times, the police and the district attorney's office or any of the prosecutions are going to continue with the prosecution, but sometimes it ends. Sometimes it ends because the victim decides that they don't want to go forward for
Yes.
whatever reason. But where the person has been injured, and where the person is, especially if it's a case where they've got medical bills and all that other stuff, that's part of the prosecution process where you can get restitution. You can get, if the guy is during the pendency of the case, you can get a restraining order, but you can also get a stay-away order during the case, and you can also get restitution as part of the ending of the case.
Perfect. All right, let's touch upon what else I said. You've proven to be a strong advocate for the Second Amendment. It's going to take a lot more than that to be elected here in the Commonwealth of
Oh,
Massachusetts.
absolutely.
It's almost like an adverse thing to actually be that strong of a proponent of the Second Amendment here in this state. So, what can you do as a candidate to help others besides the firearms community as Attorney General? What are you going to say to them? And you can tie this into because we're running up against the clock, your final 2 minutes of where you can just sell yourself. I'll let you do that as well.
Okay.
So if you could just do that as well as tie my question into that.
Okay, let's talk about the First Amendment. There's a lot of laws that are being proposed, some have been passed, called hate speech. Now, there is such a thing as hate speech. Hate speech, while someone is committing another crime, such as assault and battery with dangerous weapon, attempted murder, and they are using words that are toward that goal. That can be hate speech. That is an aggravating factor of in the crime, or an aggravating element. But there are some things that the legislatures have tried to pass as hate speech, which was really against thought. And the First Amendment is to prohibit the government from interfering with expressing thought, political thought, social thought. They can, and the Supreme Court has said that legislatures can pass commercial speech, laws governing commercial speech, so that people don't come on TV and say that their product cures cancer when really it's snake oil and it doesn't do that at all.
No.
So you can't lie about a particular product. But we have other things. If you want to talk about theology, about different religions, there's some proposed laws that are saying to comment on someone's particular religion is hate speech because of disagreement. And that is intending to suppress public dialogue. And the First Amendment is to protect public dialogue. So there's a number of things that I would do to step in. But I'm going to tell you something. Let me just say, put it right out there. When I take the oath of office, it's going to tell me, and I'm going to swear to, upholding the Constitution of the United States and the laws thereunder. I'm going to be defending the Constitution of the United States and the laws thereunder. I intend to do that. I'm going to uphold and defend the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and the laws thereunder. Now, you asked about, a few moments ago, about the LGBTQ community. I make it easy. They're human beings. They're going to get every right that the human beings get under the constitutions, under both constitutions. And if it's a Second Amendment, if it's First Amendment, I'm going to protect their rights. I'm going to give everybody equal rights, not invasive rights, but equal rights.
Awesome. Well, Attorney McMahon, I really appreciate you. I got you 1 more minute to just tell us why we should vote for you and why you should be the next Attorney General of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
the reason you want to vote for me is because I am the law and order candidate. I am the person who's going to go into this office and bring some sense of reasonableness. I'm going to bring some sanity to this office. The Attorney General's office has a division that's responsible for investigating and prosecuting public corruption. There's not been an indictment handed down since she's been the Attorney General. Now think about that. What is this division of lawyers doing? One of the first things I'm going to do when I go into the Attorney General's office and is to investigate the Attorney General's office and find out why they can't find corruption in Massachusetts when the feds can find it in just about every city. So I'm going to be working hard on your behalf. I'm going to set it up so that we do have a hotline where you can call in tips and we will follow up on those tips. If you find that there is no bid contracts going on in a certain city, you find out that some people in the city, there's payoffs, you call us, we're going to investigate that. And we'll keep you confidential, but we will investigate those things and we will follow the money trail. And you will be proud that you elected me as your Attorney General. And I thank you for watching this program.
Well, Attorney McMahon, thank you so much for your time. And again, I'm sorry about hearing about your son. That's a topic that's near and dear to us here on the show. As a matter of fact, our next guest is in recovery and he's doing some special things.
Excellent. I'm going to stick around so I can hear the rest of the show.
He's an excellent person. Again, thank you for your time, sir.
Chris, thank you for having me on the show.
And I'll catch you after the show.